Right after 9/11, about 10 days after 9/11, I went through the Pentagon and I saw Secretary Rumsfeld and Deputy Secretary Wolfowitz. I went downstairs just to say hello to some of the people on the Joint Staff who used to work for me, and one of the generals called me in. He said, "Sir, you got to come in. You got to come in and talk to me a second." I said, "Well, you're too busy." He said, "No." He says, "We've made the decision. We're going to war with Iraq." This was on or about the 20th of September. I said, "We're going to war with Iraq. Why?" He said, "I don't know." He said, "I guess they don't know what else to do." So I said, "Well, did they find some information connecting Saddam to Al-Qaeda?" He said, No. He says, "There's nothing new that way. They just made the decision to go to war with Iraq." He said, "I guess it's like we don't know what to do about terrorists, but we've got a good military and we can take down governments." And he said, "I guess if the only tool you have is a hammer, every problem has to look like a nail." So I came back to see him a few weeks later, and by that time we were bombing in Afghanistan. I said, "Are we still going to war with Iraq?" And he said, "Oh, it's worse than that." He said, he reached over on his desk, he picked up a piece of paper, and he said, I just got this down from upstairs," meaning the Secretary of Defense's office today, and he said, "This is a memo that describes how we're going to take out 7 countries in 5 years, starting with Iraq and then Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and finishing off Iran." I said, "Is it classified?" He said, "Yes, sir." I said, "Well, don't show it to me." And I saw him a year or so ago, and I said, "You remember that?" He said, "Sir, I didn't show you that memo. I didn't show it to you."
I'm sorry, what did you say his name was?
I'm not going to give you his name.
So go through the countries again.
Well, starting with Iraq, then Syria and Lebanon, then Libya, then Somalia and Sudan, and then back to Iran.
Hey YouTube world, Harvest is plenty. Thanks for stopping by to check out the video. So I was looking at this headline and many others just like it, and listening to the commentary online, and I decided to put up this video because I think most people are missing the point. They're just not aware of what this really is all about. People are looking at it, the geopolitical conflict with Israel, Iran, and the US, through a political lens. They see Democrat versus Republican in America, Biden and Harris versus Trump and Vance. And on a geopolitical front, they see this president versus that president, versus the Islamic regime, or the Christian Zionists versus the Islamic regime, which is what Apple Pike talked about a little bit. But it's spiritual in nature, not political. Things happen first in the spiritual realm, and then it's manifested in the physical realm. As above, so below. It has always been that way. I want to read some of the article to you, and then I'm going to cut back and explain a little bit what General Wesley Clark was talking about to tie it all in, and then I will leave you with a good video at the end as well to end it and wrap it all up, so you guys can kind of get a picture of what I'm trying to explain to you guys. So the article, this is Forbes magazine, by the way. It says Trump just triggered the largest data center build out in history. Basically, or in essence, Trump issued an executive order to make data centers a national priority. I'll read a little bit of the article. It says this, and this is Forbes magazine. It says, "If there's one thing I've learned after decades in the investment world, is that government policy is a precursor to change. What's unfolding right now with artificial intelligence in the U.S. is a full-blown industrial revolution and is being backed and subsidized by the federal government like few things I've ever seen. Last week, President Donald Trump signed an executive order that could mark the beginning of a new era in U.S. manufacturing and energy. With the stroke of a pen, the White House declared AI data centers and their supporting infrastructure, which is semiconductors, transmission lines, power generation, and more, a national priority. What this means is faster permitting, regulatory rollbacks, access to federal land. Of course, they need to build data centers on these federal land, and potentially hundreds of billions in new investment flowing into this industry over the coming decade." And then it says beneath that, the rise of the AI industrial complex. So we're moving from a military industrial complex to an AI industrial complex. And I told you guys what I thought about AI, artificial intelligence. There's no intelligence there at all. Jesus Christ is the true intelligence. The angelic knowledge, that's the false artificial intelligence. Another video for another time. So what's going on with what General Wesley Clark was saying and how that all ties in? When 9/11 happened, which was an inside job, it happened under George Bush's Jr.'s watch. One of the things he said when he came in to kick this off during his inaugural address, he said, "Don't you know there's an angel in the whirlwind that directs this storm?" He was telling you that this new world order is being orchestrated from the heavenly realms by an angel. Do you want to guess what angel he was talking about? Which fallen angel? I'll leave that up to your imagination. But he said an angel was directing these events. Then they took the stars on the Republican logo and inverted it into an inverted pentagram. I did a video about that. I'll link that below. If you haven't seen it, watch it. They inverted it into an inverted pentagram. The same pentagram logo that's of the Eastern Star. Also the same inverted pentagram logo that's on the Church of Satan, Anton LaVey's church in San Francisco, the seal of the Baphomet. And 9/11 was kicked off in the Big Apple. They had a plan to topple all of these countries, institute regime change, and put in puppets who would play ball with helping to get this beast system underway. But remember what I said, they were trying to forerun God's prophecy and kick things off ahead of time. But God is still in control. He's still on the throne. He said, nope, it's not time yet. The restraint is still restraining. So here we are 20 plus years later, and they still haven't toppled all of these countries. Because as I said before, regardless of what they're trying to do, if God says it's not time yet, then it will not happen. Everything happens according to God's plan, not to Lucifer's plan. And that's why we're still here, and they haven't got to where they need to be. So here comes the Donald. He's like, put me in the game, coach. Put me in the game, coach. I'll get it done. And they decided, behind closed doors, the people who really run things, they selected Donald Trump to be the next president. And then he came in, and he started moving very fast, getting things done. They pushed him back, let Biden come in. Trump comes in as 45 and as 47, the 9/11 president. I did a video with him with the mattress commercial, Sealy mattress commercial, and you had the sheep there, and the sheep had 9/11 on them, letting you know he was our 9/11 president. And also during Trump's second term, there's going to be a 9/11 style event that takes place. Now, whether that 9/11 event is a bombing, a Mumbai, India style shooting along with the bombing, or will it be cyber in nature? I don't know. I'm thinking it's going to be cyber, or it may be all three. Who knows? But something will go down. He's our 9/11 president. President 45, President 47. It's all symbolic. Everything is done esoterically. Now, they're trying to knock down Iran and knock all these countries down and put banks in them. And then the banks are going to lend loans to these companies that are controlled by them to rebuild the infrastructure so everybody gets rich internally on their side. And then they put in these grid systems because they need grid systems up for tracking, for surveillance, for the new digital currency that's going to come up. After they take the grids down nationwide, they're going to raise up the grids back up, but currency, paper dollars won't be in effect anymore. They need a digital currency. Remember, Trump signed the Genius Act as well to tie it in with crypto to run off of blockchain technology. So they're going to have all of this stuff up, and that's the plan. The thing is, it needs to be worldwide. You cannot have one part of the world with a beast system in place and the other half of the world free. Because if that's the case, then people will flee the grids, the area that's controlled by the beast systems, and go to the free countries. No, they cannot have that. In the book of Revelation, it said the beast control the whole world. So it's going to be prophetic fulfillment. So that's why they're trying to get these systems up all over the world. And that's what's really going on. It's prophetic fulfillment right before our very eyes. And I hope I was able to connect some dots with you guys. And this last video that's going to end it will hopefully tie in some things that I didn't make clear. I thought I was clear, but maybe I'm not. But anyway, I'll be back with more content. I love you guys. Until my next video, may the good Lord continue to bless you and your family.
You know, I heard one of your interviews in relation to Iran and the Strait of Hormuz. As we sit here today, today's March 26th, where do you see this at now in terms of, well, look, before you answer that, let me back up a second, because yesterday, I want to get your thoughts on President Trump appointing Mark Zuckerberg, Jensen Huang, and Larry Ellison on a board of science and technology advisors.
Well, if you come into Solari, we have a collection that we update every week called the Approaching Digital Control Grid. And this administration has been very, very focused on building the digital control grid. You know, they literally came in, and from the first day, they just hit the decks running, building the digital control grid. That's what they're doing in Ukraine. That's what they're doing in Gaza. That's what they want to do in Iran, because Iran is the last of remember Wesley Clark, 7 countries in 5 years? It's the last country they need to lock down if they're going to do a digital control grid. So, or I shouldn't say it's the last, it's the most important one they have to lock down. It's that 7th, and what was supposed to take 7 years, 5 years. And so, you know, we're now in 25 years. So you can tell they're frustrated. But anyway, but if you look at that digital control grid, what they did was they built a board of people who are instrumental in helping to build the digital control grid. So it makes perfect sense.
But the Iranians have something to say about that, right?
So as long as the Iranians can find a way to trade, you know, you have to look at this in the balance sheet. There's both a control of physical assets and control of financial assets going on. Okay. So, you know, there's a lot of conversation about what's happening in the military side of what's going on in the Middle East. But remember, there's a financial operation too. So right before the regime change exercise that failed, you had the United States really try and drive the Iranian currency into the ground. And that was a very important part of that operation. But since February 28th, I just read one Substack that said the currency's down 40% since February 28th, and they're trying to shut off liquidity. So Iran has shut off the SWIFT system. One of the reasons I suspect they're taking yuan to transit the Hormuz is the Chinese are allowing them a way to trade, you know, and to get financial liquidity by getting and using the yuan. Okay. But what they're trying to do is shut off their flow of energy, which is bringing in revenues, and they're exporting, or it's running their control grid, and then shutting off their financial liquidity. And it's a drain game. How fast can you drain their ability to function versus how fast is the United States and the West getting drained by the higher oil prices and the financial problems? Now, if you look at who's getting hurt, the U.S., you know, the U.S. advantage is it's as a financial matter, it's net self-sufficient in energy, and it's an exporter of energy. So it's in relatively good shape. Whereas Japan, you know, or countries that have very low reserves are in real danger. So you've got a draining game in the West, and certainly in Israel. Israel's feeling the pain. But you know, you've also got a drain game going on in Iran, and the question is who's going to call uncle first. Now, if Iran can hold out with enough energy flow and enough liquidity flow, probably through the Chinese, maybe through the Russians, you know, then it's a real game changer, because the effort to implement the digital control grid is going to have a real stall in it, because you know, there is a leakage in the system, and Iran is that leakage in the system.
So then the question is, who would, like to you, what you said, who would say uncle first? I wonder who's closer to that point of raising the white flag, so to speak.
I have no idea. I don't think we know. Um, if I was leading Iran, there's no way I would ever say uncle. Whatever loss I had to take, this is a win-lose situation. And what you're talking is about is a 1,000-plus-year-old, society and culture agreeing to total extinction and slavery. So, the Iranians are very smart. They have, if you look at the World Review, they and the Chinese have the highest IQ, the 107. So I think the Iranians, when the Iranian foreign minister said, we've been planning to deal with this war for 40 years now, and they are playing an asymmetrical war. So I think the question is, can they keep enough trade and financial liquidity going to keep, to stay in survival mode?
And that hence the Iranian toll booth that they set up.
Yeah. Yeah. So they're basically they're getting currency as a result of allowing some boats to go through. Now, here's the question. If you look at just the mathematics of what it takes to saturate bomb Israel versus saturate bomb Iran, Iran is a huge country and it's very mountainous in many sections. I mean, look at it at the topography of Iran. Look at a map that has the topography. So, it depends on what their stockpile of missiles are, but, I think they are capable of huge damage to to Israel. And so I doubt the Israelis have ever had to, take that level of, certainly in recent history. So I don't know who's going to say uncle first. I really don't. Now, what's interesting is the last headline I saw, and I didn't look right before I came on, was that the Iranians said that they would negotiate with Vance. They would not negotiate with Witkoff and Kushner. Because if you look at what Kushner and Witkoff have been doing, in Moscow, in Ukraine, in Gaza, they're very much at the forefront of implementing the digital control grid. So I think it's very interesting. The Iranians said, no, we will only negotiate with Vance.
How would they even trust anybody from this administration at this point?
I don't think you can. I mean, that's how you get to such a win-lose position. Because if you look at recent history, the only reason that each time the Iranians have gathered together to consider a peace plan, it's been used as an excuse to assassinate them. So,
what do you think the future of Israel is from all this?
I don't know. I really don't know. I think I think Israel is in danger of paying a terrible, terrible price for, sort of there are two problems. One is, what's going on now in terms of war. But if you look at what the leadership in Israel and the leadership in the United States, which supports Israel, have done to assert control of the political process in the U.S., I think the backlash against that could destroy Israel. And it's terrible because there's so many innocent, it's like anything when you get that kind of backlash, you have so many good, innocent people who don't deserve what may be coming.